The Carolina Panthers walk off against the Green Bay Packers in a signature win for Dave Canales. Let's break it all down right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, the part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube, where I am live right now and live after every single Panthers regular season game. And if you ever miss a live episode here on YouTube, it's always going to be, of course, in your YouTube feeds and wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And I hope that you are a first-time bettor on FanDuel today. And I hope that you bet on the Panthers, who were 2-touchdown underdogs on the road at Lambeau Field against the Packers. I hope you put $5 on them and that you won, because obviously you did, because the Panthers 16, the Packers 13, in walk-off fashion, a signature win for Dave Canales in the second year as head coach here in Carolina, and a win that I did not believe was going to happen. Y'all heard me on Friday. I didn't see it. I did not see this result coming. But all week long, those guys in that locker room, those men, in that locker room, talked about the 40-9 result last week at home against Buffalo was just one game. That the NFL is a week-to-week league, that you always have to maintain your confidence no matter what happens to you in such games like losing 42-13 against New England and losing 40-9 against Buffalo. And even when you win 30-0, you always have to reset every single Monday and focus in on the next opponent. Now, of course, as fans, as podcasters, and in the media, we don't always look at it that way. We look at the results that they had earlier in the season against the Patriots, what they did last week against the Buffalo Bills, and know that, man, those are two pretty damn good teams, and Carolina got stopped by them by a combined 60 points. Yeah, they beat the Jets. It was a clunky win, but a win is a win is a win. Yes, they beat the Dolphins in comeback fashion, but man, should you have ever been in a situation like you were in, being 17-0 against Miami? You beat Dallas. Good win, but how good are the Cowboys? Obviously, this was a far more competent team that we have seen over the last couple of years, sitting at 4-4 heading into this matchup, being the lone 500 team in the NFL, right there in 17th place out of 32 teams in the National Football League. So I knew that the Panthers weren't a bad team, but I had not seen any evidence this season that showed me that they could go out there and do this, to hold down Jordan Love and the Packers offense that was spectacular last week on Sunday Night Football in Pittsburgh, to play the way they did again on the ground. Rico Dowdle being the workhorse back today, something that people were begging for the last couple of weeks when Chuba Hubbard came back in after his calf injury, and with a banged-up offensive line. Chandler Zavala comes back today. He gets injured. Jake Kurhan has to play the bulk of the snaps at right guard today, and you saw zero drop-off. The standard is the standard there on the offensive line, and a ton of credit to those guys. So once again, paved the way for Rico, who just continues to run his ass off and having another great day. But damn, I did not see this as being a possibility for Carolina. I really didn't. And this is a hell of a win, y'all. It is. And I can't think about the last time they won a game of this magnitude. Certainly a couple of years ago when they were able to win on the road against Seattle. When Steve Wilkes is here, he talked about winning back-to-back games, getting a road win. That was obviously important. Had they wrapped up the game, that they were up 2 touchdowns against Tampa in that de facto NFC South title game, that obviously would have been a massive signature win. But when's the last time they won a game like this against a team in Green Bay coming in at 5-1-1, was the top team in the NFC, one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl, one of the favorites to come out and to win the NFC and represent the conference in the Super Bowl this year? When is the last time they did something like this? We heard the last couple of weeks where it's been the first time since 2021, all this and that. In 2021, we know what happened that season. They fell apart after starting off 3-0. We saw what happened in 2018 when they fell apart that year. 2017, Minnesota, is that the last time they had a game like this? Maybe the Tampa game that clinched the playoffs, I believe. Is that the last time they really had a signature kind of win? And for Dave Canales, who came in here with a pretty paltry road record, they're 3-9, I believe, now 4-9 during his career here in Carolina on the road, where they're losing in their game so far this season by 20 points on average. This was big for him. And I felt like this was actually a perfect game plan that he had. I've had my questions about Dave as a coach, not just as a play caller, but as a coach, and whether he indeed will be the right guy for Carolina. And I love that Adam Amin and Greg Olsen constantly brought this up, and really Greg on the broadcast on Fox today, the decision to, after you won the toss, to take the ball, because typically you want to defer, but usually, as I just said, you want to defer. But today they looked at the win. And they decided, no, we'll take the ball, because in the second half, Green Bay doesn't have to take the ball. They can decide to kick it again, but that would not be obviously what they would do. They're going to take it, which means that you, the kicking team, you get to choose where you want to kick from. And the Panthers, knowing that the wind is always insane up there in Green Bay, they saw that let's go to this side of the field and have the wind be in our favor for a potential game-winning kick, which occurred from 49 yards today from Ryan Fitzgerald. That was prescient by them to understand that if we're going to win this game, it's going to be a close game. So we need to make sure that we're in position to be able to make a field goal in these conditions, and they did that. So, like, that was a great coaching job by Dave, and also Tracy Smith, the special teams coordinator. We talk to him every Thursday, and he's always giving some really nice tidbits on what goes into the calculus of how you're going to go about your plan on special teams, something that maybe you don't really focus in on a lot, but the wind, obviously, in Green Bay, like we saw today, was a massive factor. And it was a factor when Rico Dowdle got flagged for unsportsmanlike conduct, the excessive celebration for the Hingle McCringleberry. Shout out to Key and Peele. It was only 2 pumps. So I'm failing to understand how that's a penalty. We saw 3 pumps, flag. 2 pumps, you're good. 1 pump, you're good. But apparently you can't do 2 pumps. And they flagged him, and Matt LaFleur, the head coach there in Green Bay, made the correct decision on that side of the field to force Carolina to back up 15 yards and attempt a 48-yard field goal, which was off to the right and short by Ryan Fitzgerald. So he had never had a chance to make a kick on that side of the field, period, from that kind of a distance. So that obviously loomed large as Green Bay got down the field, were able to, instead of having to go for 2, which they could have done anyways, they want to put pressure on Carolina, they end up kicking an extra point, and then they're fine. They're tied at 13-13. So that was potentially going to be a massive talking point. And we're talking about it right now, but would have been even bigger had Carolina ended up losing this game because of the decision by Rico. I mean, I don't know, man. 2 pumps, blame the refs, but still, you can't have that happen in that situation. But for Ryan Fitzgerald to come back, make that field goal from 49 yards, for Dave Canales, Tracy Smith to have that plan, great job by them. But also, it's not just the special teams strategy. It's the way that they were able to go out there and play ball control offensively. And had there not been that false start on that opening drive when they converted on 4th and 1, I'm guessing that they're going to take that ball deep into Packers territory, and maybe it's a 3-0, 7-0 game. They came out with the right game plan to lean on Rico, to have some creative runs also with Jimmy Horn Jr. involved in some of those jet sweeps, and that they were able to hold on to the football. And Green Bay only had 3 drives. If you look at the drives, they really only had 2. There's a final drive that they had there in the second quarter. That was 2-minute drill, and they're having to rush. So they were only able to have 2 drives. So really, they could take their time, get into their rhythm, and Carolina held on to the ball there in the first half and then held on strong defensively. And you want to look at this as a signature victory for Dave Canales. How about a signature victory for Ejiro Rivera and his defense for the way that they played today? The way they won this game was in the red zone. 1 for 5 Green Bay was in the red zone today when it came to scoring touchdowns. They fumbled on their first possession. Christian Roseboom, who actually had a pretty solid game, had a nice knockout there of the ball. Nick Scott picks it up. They get that turnover there as Green Bay was easily driving down the field. Turk Wharton, on the next drive that Green Bay was down there in the red zone, he's able to have a sack of Jordan Love, and the Packers, they self-destruct and have a penalty that backs them up. They have to kick a field goal on that drive. They go back down the next time around, continue to have issues as well. They have 2 turnovers, say Green Bay does. One of them, a horrible interception, just a deep ball by Jordan Love that maybe got cut up in the wind. I don't know. But for the Panthers to get 2 takeaways, to force Green Bay to kick field goals multiple times in the red zone and keep them out of the end zone until the final possession that Green Bay had in the fourth quarter, that was a terrific day for the Panthers defense, a defense that had to go out there and really play with some pride after what happened to them last week. When you're looking at, damn, they can't stop the run. And they weren't necessarily great against the run today either when it came to Josh Jacobs having a solid day for Green Bay, but they weren't getting gashed like they did last week when facing off against James Cook and what is an excellent Bills rushing attack there offensively that they put together. But to come back after what they have been doing for 3 weeks against Miami, against Dallas, and against the Jets, and then to give up what they gave up last week against Buffalo, then today to play to a standard and play as well as they play to get those takeaways, a lot of credit to them. And Green Bay's a team that had a 70% conversion rate in the red zone. And that's not field goals, y'all. That's touchdowns. In the NFL, red zone, that's about touchdowns, not about field goals. That was 7th in the NFL at a 70% conversion rate in the red zone. Turn those into touchdowns. 1 for 5 today. That's your story right there. The Panthers defense held them down in the red zone. They forced 2 takeaways. The Panthers offense rode Rico Dowdle again to a win, and they took care of the football. 1 bad throw there by Bryce Young, which I'm guessing the wind had a factor. I have no idea what he was looking at as he had Jalen Coker underneath. Instead, tries to get the ball to XL, and I just couldn't believe it. When I saw, I was like, what the hell was that? As the ball gets intercepted by Xavier McKinney in the end zone. Other than that, Carolina played a really good game. The stats aren't going to be gaudy offensively in the passing game, but they got the job done. And this is a win that really, when you look at the schedule ahead the next 2 weeks, makes you feel like you should win those games. But of course, it's a week-to-week league. So Carolina will have to reset again on Monday after what, again, is a signature victory for Dave Canales in his 2nd year as the Panthers head coach. The Panthers win in walk-off action, 16-13 on the road at Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers. Let's get in more to what the offense did. Bryce Young, his 9th game-winning drive of his career. Rico Dowdle, y'all wanted to see him as a lead back. Dave finally obliged to it, and Rico had himself yet another day. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it, because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. The Carolina Panthers walk off on the road against the Green Bay Packers, winning 16-13 on a 49-yard field goal from rookie kicker Ryan Fitzgerald. A massive win, obviously, for Carolina, who now moves to 5-4 on the season, with the Saints coming into town next week. An opportunity to get to 2 games above 500. When's the last time they did that? Well, 2021, of course, which has been really the last time since, for a lot of things in positive fashion for Carolina recently. But the last time they had a win like this one against a caliber opponent like Tampa Bay, or like Green Bay, rather, got the Bay right, but the wrong name at the beginning. It's been a long time. And I know Panther fans have been starving thirsty for something like this to feel the way that you do right now. So soak it in. Enjoy it. It's going to be another fun week here on Locked On Panthers, and dare to dream after winning a game like this. And again, I did not expect this to be a competitive performance for Carolina based off of what they did against New England, who blew their doors off on the road there a couple of weeks ago in week 4, what happened last week at home against Buffalo, losing 40-9. But those guys in the locker room, they all said it, that it's a week-to-week league. You can't lose your confidence. You got to reset and prepare like it's a brand new opponent, which it is, and go out there and play the way that they played today. And just a big win for all involved. But Rico Dowdle, y'all clamored for him to be the lead back when Chuba Hubbard came back. Dave Canales, and I think rightfully so, wanted to see what the guy that they handed the contract to last year, a guy who had been a big culture setter for him last season, and someone who's really respected in that locker room, he wanted to see if they could get Chuba Hubbard to play at a high level and pair him and Rico Dowdle moving forward. He tried it out for 2 weeks. It did not work out. Rico very clearly during those 2 weeks and over the course of the season has been a better back. And on Monday, Dave flat out told us, even if he didn't necessarily say, yes, this is what I'm going to do, but he said it's impossible. And they cannot ignore that Rico Dowdle had been exceptional. And once again, in this game, he was exceptional. Looking at the numbers, 25 carries for 130 yards, 5.2 yards per carry, 2 rushing touchdowns. The first time in his career he's had 2 rushing touchdowns. Also was a factor a little bit in the receiving game with 2 receptions for 11 yards. That's 27 touches for 141 yards and 2 touchdowns from Rico Dowdle, who very clearly was dealing with something, and it looked like it was his groin. I know he's holding on to that one point in time late in the second half, and he stayed out there on the field. And I think he had come out later on with Chuba Hubbard coming in, then capped off that drive with the touchdown. Like, the guy's been a warrior. And it's cool to see that a North Carolina native is back home after not getting an opportunity to stay in Dallas and get the kind of money that he was hoping to get. He's getting $2.75 million minimum here and potentially up to $6 million based off of incentives. And based off of how he played today and that they have 8 more games and he's going to be the lead back as long as he is healthy and doing his damn thing, he might be hitting that $6 million and getting those incentives, because he has been the Panthers offense, quite honestly. When you look at the game against Miami, the turnovers by Bryce were backbreakers, but then Bryce made the play to Ted on that 4th down. He made the play to Xavier Legette on that touchdown. He had Xavier Legette on that final drive as well and was able to find the touchdown to Mitchell Evans. He made the plays also that they needed to see him make on that final drive against Dallas, but it was Rico who carried them offensively during those 2 wins. And then again today, it was Rico Dowdle, who is the Panthers offense. And that's kind of the thing when you're looking at the running back position at this point in time in Carolina, is that you really cannot afford to not have him out there for the bulk of the game, because you get next to nothing at this point in time from Bryce Young and the passing game. And it's possible that maybe he was limited because of the ankle injury he suffered a couple weeks ago that caused him this last week. But to me, this is the same old passing game that we've seen from Bryce more often than not in Carolina. And if you told me that he was going to throw for 102 yards and an interception, it wouldn't surprise me. I would not think that the Panthers won the game, though, but they did. 11 for 20, 102 yards, an interception, only had a 48.3 passer rating today, but it didn't matter because they ran the ball. And Bryce, for the most part, outside of that one interception, which he probably made the wrong read there, not going underneath Jalen Coker, who was wide open and possibly could have scored, at the very least would have picked up the first down and had it been 1st and goal there. He could have gone to him, but he didn't. Try to hit XL, and the ball got cut up in the wind. Other than that, Bryce took care of the ball, was able to operate the offense, get the ball to Rico, which obviously was the game plan. And then for the 9th time in his career as a starter here in Carolina, he led them to a game-winning drive. 9 out of the 11 games Panthers have won with Bryce, because QB wins is not a stat, but the 11 games that they have won with him, 9 of those have been game-winning drives, which is just crazy. And to think about that, you have all the walk-off wins. You have this walk-off win, the one against Dallas earlier this season. Was that a walk-off win? Yeah, the walk-off win against Dallas, the ones last year against New York and against, well, Arizona was kind of an overtime. But yeah, I mean, all of them. The 2 ones at the beginning of the season, or not the beginning of the season, the 2 games that they won his rookie year against Houston, against Atlanta, all these being walk-off wins. So that is a trademark of Bryce Young's tenure so far in Carolina. don't really do anything in the passing game all day long. But when they need you to make throws like you did, Jalen Coker, and then also to Tedero McMillan on that final drive, Bryce delivers for you, gets you in position. Now, Rico obviously did break off that run for 19 yards, put them right there in field goal range. Then, of course, had the final carries there to set up the 49-yard field goal. But Bryce making the two throws that he needed to make on that final drive, get them down the field in position where they could hand it off to Rico, then for him to do his thing and set up Ryan Fitzgerald. That's 9 game-winning drives out of 11 wins that the Panthers have had when Bryce Young has been their starting quarterback. When it matters most, the guy is able to deliver. And the offensive line, got to give them a shout out as well. They came in banged up. This was the 7th different offensive line combination in 9 weeks, and the Panthers are 5-4. When that happened a couple of years ago, they went 2-15. When it happened in 2021, they went 5-12. Typically when the Panthers, and really any team in the NFL and probably across football period, when they have the kind of injuries Carolina's had on the offensive line, their seasons go to hell. But that has not happened, as these guys each and every week, no matter who was playing, they have, I said this a couple times, played to a standard on that offensive line. Icky started at left tackle. Damian Lewis back out there at left guard. He left momentarily as the officials were trying to check him, I think, for a concussion, but he came back into the game. Austin Corbett playing at center. Cade Mays out with an ankle/knee injury suffered last week. Chandler Zavala made the start, but then he went out with an elbow injury. Jake Kurhan, who I said last week, who is this guy? Said it throughout the week, who is this guy? Well, Jake Kurhan may be your starting right guard again next week because he actually played his ass off as well. And then Josh Nyman out there, right tackle, as Taylor Moton was active but was unable to play in this game. The 7th different offensive line combination in 9 weeks, and the Panthers were able to run for 163 yards, average 4.9 yards per carry, and Bryce Young was sacked once. And that sack was really Bryce not holding on to the ball too long. So not on the offensive line at all. Those guys played a great game. And no, do not want to see any more injuries because obviously it's getting pretty bare bones right now when looking at the fact that Jake Kurhan had to play a bulk of the snaps at right guard today. So hopefully with Chandler, it's not significant after he came off of IR on Saturday to play in this game at right guard after suffering a knee injury. And he's been dealing with that throughout the season, even going back to training camp. With Cade Mays, maybe he'll be back next week. We'll see. But for this Panthers offensive line, it hasn't mattered who's been out there. Each and every one of those guys has done their job, done their 111th, and has helped Carolina just continue to run the ball effectively. And you think about it, like they, back in week 5, had their 4th different offensive line combination. Week 6, same case. And then here, week 9, brand new group of guys. And Rico Dowdle has a big day on the ground. So a ton of credit to the offensive line, to Rico Dowdle for doing the damn thing again. And to Bryce Young for when it matters most, when you need him to make that throw, he makes it. You wish you could get a lot more than they do out of the passing game through the bulk of the game. Just doesn't happen. But when you need it, Bryce is able to deliver. So again, 9th time in his career, he's led a game-winning drive here for your Carolina Panthers. Panthers winning 16-13 and now sitting at 5-4 with New Orleans coming to town next week. Do you dare to dream after a win like this? We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets to a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Shout out to the 387 people live with me here on YouTube, where I am live after every single Panthers game, immediately live for the most part after road games like today. When at home, like next Sunday against the Saints, I will be live about an hour and a half after the game as I go down to the press conferences, locker room, and hear what the guys have to say. So typically delayed for home games, but here pretty close to the end of the game when it's on the road. But what a win for the Carolina Panthers. And again, I did not think they were going to win this game and did not have much hope that they were going to be competitive. Talk about FanDuel. And I said at the top of the show, I hope that you were a new bettor and that you bet on Carolina. And even if you didn't, even if you weren't someone who's new, I hope you still bet on them and you cashed out today, because that was a line that, honestly, you think about it, like, it's disrespectful ever in the NFL to see a 2-touchdown line for a team, especially a team sitting at 4-4. And I know, and look, I felt like they weren't going to be competitive and win this game. I didn't see this happening at all. But I mean, really, because you rarely see this, even in games where, like, that team's not going to win. You don't see those kind of betting lines. And for the Panthers, I don't know if they care, if they look at that at all. Probably best practice to avoid gambling as a professional athlete or an athlete of any kind nowadays. But still, they went out there, play with pride. They washed away what happened last week and went out there and beat a Packers team that had looked outstanding last week against Pittsburgh. And Green Bay has been a little up and down in some of their performances, even if they were 5-1-1. You had the weird game against Dallas, which was the tie where they couldn't stop Dak and the Cowboys offensively. Of course, they lost to the Browns. They had that great game week 1 against Detroit, and they really do embody, much like the Panthers, that this is a week-to-week league. So you never want to get too high or get too low. You want to try to stay here, but obviously, as a fan, that's hard to do. And even sitting in my chair, it's hard for me to do that because I react to what happens. I got to talk about it every single day. So it's hard to see what happened against New England and what happened against Buffalo and then try to project a win against a team like Green Bay. And then to see them win 30-0 and then how it happened against New England the week after, just be like, what's going on here with this team? But this is just what it is, man. I still think that they're probably more of a middle-of-the-road 8-win football team. But when you win a game like this, it makes you believe that you could accomplish more. And we talk about potentially getting to 8 wins, possibly more. New Orleans is a team that you should sweep. You got them coming home next week. You should be sitting at 6-4. If they go out there and lose to the Saints next week, I'm guessing a lot of y'all are going to crash out if that happens. I don't think it's going to happen, but I also didn't think the Panthers are going to beat the Packers. It's a week-to-week league, any given Sunday, all that Al Pacino, Cameron Diaz nonsense. Come on. That's a game you got to win. And in Atlanta on the road, well, the Falcons, did they win today? I know they were at least close. Again, no, they lost because they missed an extra point because John Parker Romo, justice for Younghoe Koo. Shout out to Prince of Mamiel, who tweeted that out immediately after the Panthers kicked the Falcons' ass 30-0 back in week 3. So the Falcons lost again, but at least acquitted themselves well on the road and a loss against New England. But that's a game, even on the road, in a place that's kind of been a house of horrors for this organization. Wasn't back in January, but has been periods of time here over the last 30 years. That's a game you got to feel good about. And again, against New Orleans, you should be able to win that. So, that could be 8 right there. And the Panthers today have demonstrated that they are capable. And they don't have to play any more of the top teams in the AFC. So maybe it was just an AFC problem. It wasn't a upper echelon of the NFL problem for Carolina. Maybe it's just like, okay, they can't mess with anybody in the AFC, which is only going to be a problem again if they make it to the Super Bowl, which, dare to dream, I guess. But I'm not serious there. But yeah, look, you got LA coming here. You've heard what I've said about the Rams. I think that's a team that can absolutely hoist the Lombardi Trophy. You got to go to San Francisco on Monday Night Football, and you have Seattle here at home. It's Sam Darnold late in the season, so I wouldn't be betting on Sam Darnold to not do something stupid. And then you have Baker Mayfield and the Bucs twice, a team that I think certainly is better than Carolina, but it's a divisional game. And when you win games like this, you can possibly envision that may mean a lot once you get down late into the season in week 16 and 18 against Tampa in those 2 weeks, and then with Seattle sandwich in between. So don't want to get too ahead of myself. Don't want to go crazy here, but this is a big win. And something I think that, obviously those guys needed. We asked them throughout the week last week, heading into that Buffalo game, if they looked at it as a measuring stick, and they didn't want to feed into that media narrative. And I get it, but you have to think that inside that locker room, those guys knew that they're sitting at 4-3. The Bills are coming to town off of a bye. There was all the stats about Sean McDermott had never lost a game after a bye, and that continued as they were able to win convincingly last week here in Charlotte. But still, those guys had to have thought, all right, this is our opportunity to show the NFL that we can be a serious team this year. Wins against Dallas, that's all well and good, but I don't think Dallas is that great. It's really going to be a playoff team with how bad their defense is. A win against the Jets, a win against the Dolphins, no one cares when you do that. Beating up on the Falcons the way you did, it's Atlanta. They're a confounding as hell team as well. That's not going to move the needle. This moves the needle. And I had somebody ask me in the press a couple weeks ago when we were talking about it in the press box prior to one of the games. He was just like, hey, so when does it become the story that is Carolina? When does that happen? It's like, well, if they beat Buffalo, maybe. But then the Bills would have lost 3 games in a row. So maybe ESPN and the NFL Network and all across the board, they're like, well, what's going on with Buffalo? This week, I don't know how you can't lead off with Carolina may be something, and that Rico Dowdle is having a hell of a season now. And that defense led by Derek Brown and J.C. Horn and a collection of more talented players than they've had in recent years. Maybe there's something to those guys as well. Like Carolina becomes a story on Monday. And I'm hoping that when I read Mike Sando's pick 6 column on The Athletic, when I read what Bill Barnwell has on ESPN.com, that those guys are actually going to be praising Carolina and thinking about, maybe Dave Canales and Dan Morgan and Brant Tillis are building something down there in Charlotte. And it's not just about what's wrong with this team. And no, Green Bay did not play a good game. They looked awful. They made every mistake in the book today. And they were begging Carolina to beat them. And the Panthers obliged. The Panthers made their own mistakes as well. It probably should not have been down to the point where they needed a last-second field goal to win, but it does not matter. They got the job done. And they are the story after beating Green Bay and showing the rest of the NFL that if Carolina comes to you, you come to Carolina. This is not a team you're just going to be able to push around. Maybe some days it's going to happen if you're in the AFC East and you're a great football team. But the rest of you, Panthers going to come to play. And they did today. We'll see if they do next week against New Orleans. But again, rejoice, stand and cheer, enjoy it. What a win for Dave Canales. What a win for the Carolina Panthers. And what a win for each and every one of you who have lived through absolute hell since David Tepper bought this team. A bright day, even on a dreary November afternoon here in Charlotte for the Carolina Panthers with the walk-off win, 16-13 against the Green Bay Packers. Wow, just wow. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe or follow the show for free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, because on Wednesday, I'm back once again answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions as I do every single week throughout the regular season. At me or DM me over on Blue Sky and over on Twitter at Julian Council to get those questions in right now. In the meantime, be safe. Be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding, and we'll be back with you on Tuesday, going over the good, the bad, and ain't nothing ugly about a win today. And we'll be listening to what Dave Canales had to say after reviewing the tape. And just again, look back on the Panthers' 16-13 win on the road against the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field.